A bird sang this song to me. There was a message in its melody, sweetest lyrics that I ever heard. There's a message in the songs of birds. He said, tomorrow is another day, but living is the only way that tomorrow's gonna ever come. Listen to the words of the song. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything is gonna be.
Greetings and welcome to A Sip of Inspiration. I am Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, the Empowerment Doctor, and I am your host for today's show. Today we're going to talk about something incredibly interesting. I have in the studio with me Miss Karen Curry. Now, we're going to talk about social and emotional development. Now, in doing some research, I have discovered, and it's like all over the internet, so really, if you want to know anything, start there, but don't let that be the only place you start, and don't let that be the end of your research either. But it gives you a good little taste and a teaser. Yes. So social and emotional development will affect not only your emotional and mental well-being, it actually will affect your ability to get along well with others. And as we know in the workplace and in your careers, very seldom are you paid for what you know and do. You're actually paid for your ability to get along well and work with others. Mm-hmm. It will also help you in dealing with crisis situations or even possible threats. It's impossible to get through this life without a crisis. And as I often say, I don't want you to waste that good crisis either, because there's so much to learn about who you are, what you believe, and what needs to be healed in your own life and in your own mind when you experience these crises. Today with me is Karen Curry, who's a mental health specialist, expert, therapist, all those good things. And of course, I've asked her to change the names of the people that we might talk about or the situations to protect anyone that she's worked with. So we're going to give you fictional names and characters. So do not ask me for the names of the people, please, because we are not at liberty to share. So I'm going to introduce you to Karen Curry and allow her to tell you some things about herself. Hi, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
I am so excited.
It's really a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it. Yes, I'm a social worker by training.
Okay.
And have been actually from the East Coast, but have been in Chicago now for about 28 years and have been in the field of social work for about 25 of those 28 years. I currently work for Lurie Children's Hospital in their Center for Childhood Resilience. And there we do a lot of training of educators and youth-serving community organizations to really help folks build capacity to meet the mental health needs of kids. And part of those mental health needs absolutely includes their social and emotional development. So.
Fantastic. So in mental health needs for children, a lot of times parents don't understand how important that is. But even more so, parents don't often know what they are looking at. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we look at some behavior as normal. Sometimes we become frustrated by some behavior, and maybe our coping techniques are not very good, because by the 50th time that kid has thrown that ball and you've asked him to stop.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know about you all at home, but I don't know about that Stephanie that might show up to deal with that situation.
Sure.
So, but you don't know if that's fun, you don't know if that's a problem. So what do you begin to see in children in the mental health area that parents need to address? And then what are some of the things that we think are normal that just are warning signs?
Wow, that's a huge question.
I know we can talk about that all day, right?
We can, and the range is so wide, right? Because
right.
Each of us is unique individuals.
Exactly.
We have unique tendencies and so forth and so on. And so what's typical behavior for one youngster is not necessarily going to be typical behavior for another. So I think what I would encourage folks to do, parents and other adults who work with kids, who nurture kids, is to really get to know that youngster and what is typical. You'll get to know, if you're in relationship, what is typical for that youngster. And then when things shift and you start to see mood changes, so a youngster who's ordinarily very active and seemingly happy a lot of the time, and suddenly is kind of shutting down or withdrawing, that's a warning sign of something. We don't necessarily know what it is without kind of further investigation, but shifts in behavior and shifts in patterns of what we do. Someone who's generally pretty quiet and all of a sudden they seem to be acting out or just doing behaviors that are not ordinary from them, for them. Those are, I would say, kind of that's the first line of things to be thinking about and being looking out for.
You used an interesting term, in relationship with. Okay,
Yes.
that's a great phrase because from what I see, and my kids are adults now, so and I have a little itty bitty grandchild, so so what I have found, or what I tend to see, is all people seem to be hypnotized by all the electronics.
Yes.
And I think it may have been a little easier to be in relationship before the invention of the tablets, but now people tend to be in a better or in a relationship with their tablets than with their children.
I think that's true. I think that's an issue for our young people today. The opportunity to actually learn how to communicate in a personal way and understand that eye-to-eye contact and tone of voice and inflection and those nonverbal behaviors, as well as what's being said to you and how what you are saying is coming off to someone. The opportunities to kind of learn those things and learn nuances of how to be with another person are lost when we are in our devices, for sure. But I don't want to let us adults off the hook as well. Even those of us who were raised in a time before social media was such a big thing. This notion of how to be in relationship, I think, is deeper than a lot of us tend to think about, because there's a whole level of consciousness and awareness about who I am first. So that relationship with me first is something that we often don't really pay attention to and don't realize that impacts everything in terms of then how we're going to be in relationship with other people.
So what are some of the things that we can do to be in relationship with ourselves? And I ask that question because a lot of times, even in what I do, people ask me, how do I know what my purpose is? And that thing inside of me says, well, you're the only one that knows.
Yes.
Because God didn't tell me what your purpose was. Yeah. I know what mine is. So let's talk about that. What do you like to do? So what are some of the things you would recommend for adults to do just to get to know who they are? Yes.
Well, there are a couple things that come to mind. So we started off talking about this notion of social and emotional development and social and emotional intelligence. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is this notion of emotional awareness. So as we increasingly become familiar with how we feel over the course of a day as life is happening to us, or as we are doing our life, that is very key. Oh, I'm feeling joy now. Oh, I'm upset now. Oh, I'm sad. It's amazing how often we go through the day without really being connected to how we feel. And those are critical signs that can guide us then toward what we want, how to act, what our purpose is. So on a level, just having that emotional awareness is very, very important. And then there's other concept of yearnings. So there are like universal yearnings that we have as human beings, yearning to be seen and heard, right? Yearning to know God, yearning to be understood, yearning for comfort. There are dozens of them. And the more that we can begin to really kind of connect to those yearnings, which are deeper than wants. I want a new car, I want this, I want that, but I yearn for something that's deeper. It kind of connects with our soul. That's also something that we can use as a guide toward what am I here for? What might my purpose be?
So in the course of the day, as we go about, you're right, I didn't think about it like that until you said it. I must experience all the emotions that are possible to verbalize, all in a whole 24-hour period.
And none are bad.
Right.
They just are.
Right.
It's how we use them.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right. It's like, okay, well, I'm not happy about that
right
now, right? Okay. So,
yes.
And of course, since I'm watching what I eat, it would not be a good time to eat chocolate cake, but
right. Yes.
So when we find ourselves feeling those emotions, I believe it's like you said, they're not bad. They're just like guideposts about what you like and what you don't like. Because all too often we're not really aware of what we like, but everything sort of our emotions and feelings bring us messages. So if we find ourselves in a situation, let's say we're angry, how do you recommend we deal with that?
Yes, no, that's a good question. And as a person who has had to develop my own relationship with my own anger,
Right.
I appreciate the question. Right. So I think, again, firstly, understanding that being angry is not a bad thing. Anger is not a negative emotion. It just what it is. It is what is. It's one of the emotions that's coursing through us all the time, and it gives us messages about not being satisfied about something. Right? And so there are all kinds of ways to go after that satisfaction.
Right.
But for me, the first thing that I try to do and what I try to invite other folks to do is stop. Like if I am feeling angry and that anger is about to get in the way of me doing what I need to do or being where or whom I need to be in a moment, stop. Take some deep breaths. You're going to find that there's a lot that we're talking about that is not rocket science. Right? It's kind of common sense, and it's physically it makes sense as well. So taking deep breaths, right? Breaths from our belly. So as we're breathing in, our belly goes out, right? And as we're exhaling, belly goes back in. That's a way of calming us down. And it actually calms our brain down. So that part of the brain that allows us to be rational and logical and think before we act is reactivated. So that's a huge first step, I think, for folks who are angry. I'll also add this. You know, we talk about kids who tantrum, right?
Right.
Tantruming is not a bad thing, even for adults. It's a matter of when and where you do it, right?
Okay.
Because we want to express the emotions that we have in us. So if we're angry, we want to express that anger. We just want to express it responsibly.
Right.
If I'm stuffing my anger all the time, that is not good for my health. So if expressing it means beating a pillow, that's like a mini tantrum.
Okay,
but I'm going to do that at home in my room. I'm not going to do that by yelling at my supervisor and run the risk of getting fired. Right? So there are all kinds of ways to express it, but the key is to do so responsibly.
Right. And if you like to kick things, like I found that I like to kick things, make sure the trash cans are plastic.
There you go. Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. I too had to develop a relationship with my anger, and I discovered that I don't really get moving toward what I really want until that anger rears its ugly head.
Yes.
Right. And when it comes up, as you said, I realize this is just not what I really want to do. And then I ask myself, if you weren't doing this, you would be doing.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you write down the answers that come, because those answers will definitely surprise you.
Yes.
And then that's what you need to get busy doing.
I love that. I love that. And for me, that connects right back to that piece about yearnings.
Yes.
That thing that you get to as you're writing down. That connects to,
Right.
ooh, what is my soul saying to me? What is my heart saying to me? Yes.
What's my soul and my heart saying? Because that's what I should be doing.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
So when kids are throwing tantrums,
little kids or big kids or all of us.
I'm so surprised my son still loves me. I remember we were in the store and he threw a tantrum, right? He was like 5, and I walked past him. I said, "You're such a cute little boy. It's a shame your parents have left you." And I walked off. He looked up and he kept running. "Mom, you came. Where are your parents?"
Yes, yes.
And I was laughing, and he laughed, and I said, "Now, would you like to talk about that?"
I love that. That's hilarious. I love that.
It was funny. It's like, it's a shame. But yeah. So tantrums aren't bad in itself. It just expresses some dissatisfaction with something's going on. And if you've got a verbal child, or even a child that has a few words, you should really have a conversation.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what they may say.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. And there's timing to the conversations as well.
Okay.
So if I'm tantruming, or I'm a youngster who's tantruming, or a grown-up who's tantruming, right? There's a space in which there's a different part of our brain that's activated that is contributing to that tantrum. There are stress hormones being released, and sometimes, depending upon the level of stress that we're feeling, we don't know really what we're doing. It's like we're not in our right mind, so to speak.
Okay.
And so that is not a time to try to have a conversation with a child.
Okay.
Because there's a different part of the brain activated, and the child is just going to be acting out. Same is true with adults, right? So we have to give ourselves time for that different part of the brain to kind of override that emotional space where if you're trying to talk to me now, I can hear you and I can respond to you in a responsible and logical way. But if I'm in the middle of my tantrum and you're trying to tell me to stop or do this or do that or teach me some behavior, it's simply not going to work at that time.
At that time.
So we want to be mindful of space and time. There's a space and time for everything.
And besides, if you let them work through that tantrum, they'll be tired when they're finished.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think part of what happens is we're dealing with our own anxiety.
Yes.
Around the tantrum. A child is doing what a child does. Children's, little ones, tantrum.
Right.
Right? That's what they do. That's a part of their expression. And if we can sit with our own anxiety and what we're feeling about maybe what somebody's thinking about me, maybe somebody thinks I'm not a good parent or whatever the case may be, if we can sit with that, then we're going to be in a better position to be able to, again, be in relationship with our child and respond to the child's needs, as opposed to try to fix the situation for ourselves.
So that's a great point, because are we reacting to the tantrum, or are we reacting to how we think people see us in that moment?
Yes.
And since we have that need for people to see us in a good light, as being a good person,
yes,
that self-image is possibly being threatened at that moment.
I think it happens a lot. And that's just humanity. Right. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. Right. That's just a part of being a human being.
Part of being human.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So we should probably enjoy that tantrum and take the time to take some deep breaths.
Yes.
And realize we didn't do anything wrong. But that's that child's expression.
Absolutely.
So when you normally encounter children or work with children or teachers, what are some of the situations that have happened that will bring them in your space?
Yeah, so now I don't currently work with families directly. I'm not involved in direct clinical work at this time, but certainly there are stories that I've heard, and once upon a time I was a therapist. So, gosh, I would say school is probably the setting that I'm have most experience with right now,
and that's what the press likes to talk about, especially when it comes to minority children, is how badly, I'm touching my mic, I apologize, how badly we act out in school. Yes,
yeah. And so there's a lot of concern about kids' behavior in school, and particularly Black and brown kids' behavior, you know, and all of, that's probably another segment, so we won't go there, but there is a profound, I think, misunderstanding of what children are thinking, doing, and feeling often when they are behaving in certain ways. So take kind of a typical acting out youngster in class, right? Or a youngster who's particularly active in class. We have traditionally kind of a sense that many of us as educators, our class should run a certain way. Behavior kind of happens within a relatively narrow box. And if you're, as a youngster, stepping outside of that box, then, oh, there's something wrong that I need to pay attention to. What we don't necessarily take into account is, for example, the amount of trauma that youngsters bring into our classrooms. Outside of trauma, the fact that many youngsters just haven't learned some basic social and emotional skills yet, and so they are not necessarily ready to hear and do just what we're saying we need to have done in our classrooms. Don't know necessarily how to sit still because they haven't learned how to deal with anxiety that they're dealing with, right? They may be feeling threatened by the physical environment of a classroom or by a teacher who has no malicious intent whatsoever. But that teacher reminds that youngster of somebody else in his or her life who has been threatening in different ways. There are all kinds of situations, emotional and mental, cognitive, that children bring to an environment. And unless we begin to be open to the possibility that a youngster is bringing some experience, we talk about this notion of the invisible backpack. And that's like all the stuff that is part of
I'm going to take a note of that.
Yeah,
the invisible backpack.
All the stuff that's a part of a child's experience that helps that child determine who I am in the world and how I think the world feels about me, and is the world safe for me. And so a lot of our work as adults who really want to meet kids' social and emotional needs is to help them unpack that invisible backpack of stuff and fill it with, I care about you, you're safe here, you are loved here. But that begins with our own awareness. This child's not acting out necessarily just to get on my nerves. Maybe there's something going on here that I need to investigate and find out more about. And then I can adapt the way I run my classroom and adapt the way I interact with that youngster, so he or she can kind of drop his or her shoulders and just be with me and learn from me. Yeah.
And possibly the teacher could ask themselves, the other question is, what's happening with me
Yes.
that I can't see something may be going wrong with that child?
Absolutely.
You know, maybe I need to look beyond the nicely pressed clothes and the high-end sneakers.
Yes. Oh, that's beautifully said. Everything that we talk about in terms of supporting youngster around their social and emotional development relates to us as adults as well, because we're all human and we all have a story. We all have our own experience of growing up, good, bad, and otherwise. And so the level of awareness we have about that's going to impact all of our interactions.
Wow. So in the emotional and social development, that naturally starts at home with the parents, because they're with the kid day and night for a number of years. So what kinds of things, say, should you work with your 3-month-old, a 6-month-old? Because a lot of parents think that that's too young.
Oh, it's not at all.
So they think that they should just be shoving stuff in their mouth and changing their diaper and giving them a bath, right?
Right.
And putting little things in front of them to play with. So what kinds of things should they be working with that child at that time?
Yeah, so an infant, youngster who's the age of an infant, they're looking for, they're learning social cues from us.
Okay.
Right? They're looking for attachment. This is a time when our attachment begins with our youngsters, and so eye contact, right? Learning how to read a child's needs. So an infant is gonna let his or her needs known by what? Making noise and crying, and we don't necessarily know. There's a dance involved in trying to determine exactly what the need is, right? I'm wet, or I'm hungry, or I'm sleepy, or whatever the case may be. So to be with that youngster and to try to be attuned to the crying. Crying is not bad. Crying is just, I need something, mommy. I need something, daddy. So trying to learn, and there's some trial and error in terms of understanding in a given moment what that child needs, right? But touch, right? Affection, eye contact, attunement, like mirroring. So if you're as a little youngster, you're kind of laughing and cooing, I'm going to mirror that back at you so you can kind of get to see the impact that you have on me. And there's just a little communication dance that's going on without words. Those are huge aspects of that age period.
So in that age period, it's perfectly natural when they're crying to give them a bottle and change their diaper and everything else until you can figure out which cry means what.
Sure, exactly. And mistakes, we're going to make mistakes. There's no perfection in human interaction, right? So it's okay to make mistakes, absolutely. In fact, there's some research out there that talks about the amount of time that a mother has what we call like a breach in her relationship with a child. So something goes wrong, there's just like a disconnect. That happens a lot. And again, that's just part of being human. The important thing is not to keep that from happening. The important thing is, how do I then repair that relationship? So it's coming back and, whether it's caressing my child or again, just being with my child in a way and reconnecting after that moment when there's been a disconnect. That's the important piece, because there are going to be times when we're disconnected and when we're giving them a bottle when in fact they're wet and want something different. That's just going to happen.
Or they want to be held and they're not wet or hungry.
Exactly,
right?
exactly, yes. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, I want to talk a bit more about how do you begin to reconnect, or even how do you know when you've disconnected?
Sure.
Because a lot of parents say, oh God, we just don't have a relationship, or they don't listen to me. When maybe we need to not be listening to what they say, but listening to what they do.
Yes, I like that.
So we'll be right back. You guys at home, I want you to stay tuned because we are going to get really deep. I promise you today that you will find some techniques that will work not only with your own children, as well as with your grandchildren. We'll be right back.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh, no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school. Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
When you don't have a safe place to come home to, nothing in your world seems right.
This is a place where I don't feel alone. This is a place that I call my home.
Help turn things around for a child. Become a foster parent.
Compound A, 46.7% by weight. Compound B.
Once you post your image online, you can't take it back. Anyone can see it. Family, friends, anyone. Remember, think before you post.
I'm Gary Sinise. You may know me as Lieutenant Dan from the movie Forrest Gump or as the bass player in the Lieutenant Dan Band. I've had the honor to meet many of our soldiers and veterans. It's a sad fact that some of our warriors, some of our nation's finest citizens, are wasting their lives through suicide. Suicide is not the answer. It's final. It robs you of your chances for a better life and brings pain and heartbreak to your loved ones. You don't have to go it alone. VA cares about you. VA is reaching out to veterans who are thinking about suicide. So reach back now. Don't wait. Call 1-800-273-TALK and press 1. Our counselors will not share your information with anyone. Thousands of veterans have had the courage to call. How about you? Call 1-800-273-TALK and press 1.
Welcome back to A Sip of Inspiration. This is Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, the Empowerment Doctor. And joining me for today's segment, in case you missed the first part, is Karen Curry. We are discussing emotional and social health for children as well as adults. Because technically we all got that little child inside of us that is still communicating with us and telling us what we need to know. So I think this is a great show. We've covered some incredible topics. So I promised you when we came back we would talk about the disconnect that occurs to parents and children. Too many parents do believe that that's just a bad thing and that you just can't get back to it because you hear them say it all the time. It's like, I just don't know what to do. There's just, I don't know how to repair that. So what are some of the steps they can take? And what should they do in the meantime when they're trying to reconnect? Because it's not going to be instant.
For sure. And are we talking about the lowest
little
ones
ones.
again?
Let's start with the
yes,
lowest
yes,
ones again,
yes.
right.
Yeah, I think the first thing, and you've alluded to this already, is to kind of check internally, because when we don't know what's going on, we become anxious, right, as parents,
Right.
as people,
people, right.
right? And so kind of take those deep breaths that we talked about before, right, and try to get a sense of what am I feeling right now? And actually having a sense of what we feel can sometimes give us an insight into what that baby might be feeling as well, because we are social beings by nature, and there is a connection that that we have that is nonverbal. So firstly, I would say, stop, take that deep breath, and what is it that I'm feeling? Then be patient. Be patient. Be paying attention to your baby. Don't worry about kind of trying to smother him or her to try to get them to react to how you want them to react, right? They are still independent human beings. Even though they're totally dependent upon us in some ways, they still are their own selves, right?
Okay, right.
So have some patience, and sometimes those tears are going to happen for a while. And to the extent that you can handle them, you can try different things. Try comforting, with some touch. Again, try that eye contact and some positive kind of body language, and see how that child reacts. Often time will take care of the situation. I think one of the things that is a mistake that we may often do is just think that I've got to fix this right now. And we don't give that youngster time just to complete whatever the feeling is that he or she is having, right? Because again, feelings are normal.
Right.
Feelings are typical. So and if we think about babies, they can be crying 1 second and then they're just giggling the next second and they're angry the next second.
Right.
But they just go through those cycles and complete those cycles to get to the next. And we often want them to do it on our time frame, but if we allow them to complete on their own time frame, then we'll be good to go.
So let's fast forward. Now they're in school, first,
Yes,
second grade.
sure.
What would be considered good emotional health for that child at that age?
Wow. So I think for that age, a child who is beginning to be able to label and identify feelings.
Okay.
Right. So
Right.
and you'll see in some classrooms and in some offices these posters, right, that have feelings, and then they have faces with feelings,
feelings,
and
right.
then feelings words under them. Right. So
Okay,
one of the
right.
things that we as parents can be doing from early on, but certainly as kids begin preschool and into elementary school, is pay particular attention to naming feelings for them, right? So when a child is behaving, oh, it looks like you're upset. And we don't necessarily know all the time, but it looks like it looks like you're angry now. And help the child to begin to identify what's going on in his or her body with that verbal feeling. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes
right?
sense.
And one of the things we know is the more we are able to name our feelings, that actually begins us to help to regulate our feelings. There's a phrase called "name it to tame it."
Oh,
And it's
okay.
actually based on science, and that
Okay.
if we act, oh, I'm angry now, that is kind of the first step toward being able to kind of regulate and calm ourselves down from that anger. Oh, I'm hurt now. Okay. So that just helps me to kind of get a sense of that hurt that I have in my body and prepare me to be able to then manage that hurt in any number of ways. But yeah, being able to identify and name those feelings, being able to begin to ask for help. If for those youngsters again in
Right.
early elementary school, you're feeling a certain way or something's going on, to be able to go to a parent and teacher and ask for some help is a wonderful sign of, I guess, healthy social and emotional space. Being able to share with other kids, and this actually can start younger, and take turns, right, and wait my turn. So beginning to have this notion of patience and getting along with other people. It's like the world is not just about me now,
Right.
but it's about other people who are in my family and in my class, etc. So those are some of the things.
So children don't always say what's going on, and parents work all day, and kids are in school for the most part all day. So now you meet and you got to do homework, and there doesn't ever seem to be time to check in to the self, to do that, check into your emotions. So should parents have a specific time every day, and what can they do? Because I know it doesn't take all day, and some parents think, oh my God, another task,
Yeah.
I don't have an hour for that.
Yeah.
So, but what would you suggest they do to work it into their day? Because it actually is going to help them check into their emotions too.
I think that's right, and I do think as much as possible to make that time. We all, we can often find the time for the things that we prioritize, for the things that we think are most important. And I believe that this is most important, or up there in terms of the most important aspects of being in a relationship and raising kids. So if it's taking, 5-10 minutes, whatever it is that you have when you come home, to reconnect with your child. How was your day? And not just, oh, fine, mommy, and then we're off to the next thing,
Because it's like,
right?
yeah, right.
How was your day? And tell them a little bit about your day, but to kind of reconnect, get us how you're feeling. Let's do a feelings game here for 2 minutes. I'm going to name 3 feelings that I have, and you do the same. Anything to just kind of make that connection again before you go off into your evening routines, right? And then I think depending upon the age of your youngsters, what kind of nighttime, either bedtime routines or just before bedtime routines might you have? That's another wonderful time for families to be together, if only for a few minutes, whether it's reading together, whether it's conversation again before bedtime. Those are wonderful opportunities to take advantage of.
When my kids were growing up, I would say, how was your day? And they would say, it was okay. I would say, wait a minute. I need information.
Right. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Exactly.
Don't stop there. I need information. I need the whole story.
Yes.
So if you want to start from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, we got time.
I love that. Exactly.
And they would say, no, she didn't.
Yes.
So it became, you're going to have something to talk about when we get home, right?
Yep.
Because you need to know.
Exactly.
But I do love the feelings game, though. I think that's pretty cool, because your kid can learn that you still have the same emotions in your day.
Yes.
That emotions are normal.
Yes.
And that they don't stop. You're going to have them.
Absolutely.
And then you can share them. So I think that's and that can be done in no time flat.
No time at all.
Right.
No time at all. Absolutely.
And I do like the reading at bedtime, because I had raised 2 children, so each one had their own bedtime routine.
Oh, nice.
The drawback of that is they both think they're only children. But they grew up in the same house, right? It's like, you all are not
this is my time, right?
Right. You all are not only children, right?
I get it.
So the feelings game and teaching your children to name the feelings, I think it's really good. So what should you do as a parent then if a kid says to you, I am really angry, or I am just so frustrated? And usually that comes with, I'm so stupid, I can't do the work.
Sure.
It's like, so how do we react?
Yes. So I think a key thing is to validate whatever the youngster is saying in terms of how I feel. There are no wrong feelings. There's no wrong time to have a feeling. And so to validate, I hear you. And not to say, why are you angry? Not to jump on the reasons why. Sometimes we don't know the reasons why we're having feelings, either as kids or as adults, right? And sometimes it doesn't matter. We don't have to know. The key thing is that we have them. So to validate them and to try to avoid placing a value judgment. So there are all kinds of things that we hear out there about, boys shouldn't cry, or anger is bad, or, I'll give you something to cry about, whatever the case may be. And these give children a sense that, okay, certain feelings maybe are okay and certain others are not. So if a youngster is saying, oh, I'm angry, Mom, I'm angry, Dad. Oh, I hear you. Can you tell me what you're angry about? I'd love to know what happened. Is there something that happened that got you? Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, I'm here. I'm here with you right now. It's okay for you to be angry, And then if there's a time later on, you can always check back later on if the child doesn't want to talk about it now. But there's nothing wrong with anger. Anger is absolutely healthy. We get caught up in the behaviors that we do when we're angry, when we haven't learned yet how to express that anger responsibly. And I think that's what catches us up as adults. Oh, I'm afraid of maybe this behavior that I'm not going to know what to do with, or might be unsafe for the child or whatever. But the emotion itself is perfectly healthy.
And what happens when they are acting out physically? All of a sudden you have someone who's the school bully. Because, so how do you wheel that back in? There's a lot about this. So how do you, because that is emotions and anger all stuffed inside.
Exactly. And so I want to just tag something that you said. I think you said that happens all of a sudden.
Right.
So my pushback on that is that those behaviors do not happen all of a sudden, right? So this whole social and emotional learning, social and emotional development piece, the way a youngster acts at 10 is related to how that youngster was raised as an infant, you know, and all the way up to the age 10, as well as things that may have just happened in the moment. So usually someone who becomes a bully, right, has something going on in his or her own life that is, and they haven't learned necessarily how to deal with those hurts and those fears, and so they act out and you know, we call it externalize and act out on other people in that regard. So when those things happen, I think there are multiple levels of things that we really want to deal with, particularly if we're talking about a school setting. And then, and when I'm talking about school setting, I'm not discounting the parents. For me, ideally, if we're talking about school, we're talking about a school and a family partnership.
Okay.
So parents or caregivers should be, you know, a part and parcel of what's going on, particularly in terms of kids' behavior. But there, you know, certainly we want to find out as much as we can, both from the youngster who's being bullied, as well as the youngster who was bullying. Again, this notion of what's going on. Not why did you do that or what's wrong with you, but what happened to you? What's going on that you're feeling the need to act out in a certain way? And I'm not saying that there aren't consequences for behavior, but sometimes those consequences trump the root causes and the contributing factors for the behavior. So we might stop something temporarily, but it's going to happen again because we haven't gotten at what's underneath and causing that behavior in the first place, right? And again, to the extent that a bully doesn't become a bully overnight, we're not going to stop a bully from being a bully overnight. And it goes back to being in relationship. How can I learn to help that youngster identify his or her feelings, right? And find some other ways. So might there be some, it sounds like you're kind of afraid of, oh no, I'm not, I'm PO, whatever. Oh, okay. We're not going to challenge the youngster when they're in the midst of that, but we're going to ask them to, you know, to take some deep breaths, right? We're going to ask, we're going to say, you know, I'd love to talk about this at a time when you're feeling a little bit better. Maybe we can talk about it then. And then there are all kinds of things that we can help youngsters to do. We can help them to start writing about experiences or drawing.
A drawing.
Right? These are one, or listening to music. Or kids who are very young can learn, mindfulness is something that's very popular in the world these days. And it does work in a lot of ways. It does work to help us become more conscious, to become more present, so we can teach kids how to breathe, right, and how to be calm, right, or to go or to find a safe space in their minds that they can go to when they're starting to get those feelings that are going to lead to bullying behavior. Does that make sense?
That makes lots of sense.
Yeah, so lots of different things that we can do. Again, we want to be patient, though, as adults, because it takes time to shift the behaviors that have taken time to develop.
That's right. And for adults, we have to remember too that, as you said, emotions are emotions. There's no one to blame. So adults are going to need to sit with that thought that this happened while I was parenting. I must be a bad parent. And no, because we've got emotions too that didn't get dealt with, that we're stuffed in, and someone is watching us stuffing emotions. So that's a perfect time for parents to start looking at those emotions too.
Exactly.
Just flushing them up and out.
That's right. Oh, I'm hurt, or like you said, I feel guilty because I messed up.
I missed the sign.
The shoulds.
I should have known this was happening.
Exactly.
I should have known that, and you just don't know sometimes.
We don't always know.
Don't always know.
And you know what, to that point, I want to just say asking for help is a wonderful thing. We don't have to be alone as parents either, as we're trying to navigate these spaces. Parenting, there's no, we don't go to school to be a parent.
That's right.
Right? And so there's help in terms of family and friends and those kinds of support in terms of people that you trust. There's all kinds of professional help as well. And part of one of the things that we're trying to do around mental health in general is reduce the stigma associated with these words, mental health. It doesn't make you a bad person. There's nothing wrong with us. All of us have mental health stuff going on.
That's right.
It just runs along a continuum.
That's
so
right.
ask for that help if you need help.
We're going to take another break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back, and we can talk about some of your successes at that point.
All right,
okay?
thank you.
So you guys, I know this is a lot to take in, but it is a much needed conversation. So I want you to stay put, and we will be right back.
Say thank you for grace. Thank you for mercy. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for wisdom. Thank you for parents. Thank you for love. Thank you for kindness. Thank you for humility. Thank you for peace. Thank you for prosperity. Say thank you in advance for what's already yours. That's how I live my life. That's why I am, one of the reasons why I am today. Say thank you in advance for what is already yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for every moment that led to this day. Thank you for the hard times. They made me appreciate the good times. Thank you for the lessons. They were needed for my development. Thank you for my eyes that get to witness the miracles of today and tomorrow. Thank you for everything I take for granted. Thank you for all of my blessings. Thank you for my drive. Thank you for my spirit. Thank you for my strength. Thank you for giving me the courage to fight through the hard times. Thank you for the people in my life, those I love and those I learn from. Thank you for it all. Thank you. Thank you. It's the key that opens the door to instant happiness, unlocks the door to everything we are really seeking in life, happiness and contentment. Think about it. No matter what you say you want, money, riches, health, to help others, why do you really want it? When you drill deep down, the only reason anyone wants anything is the feeling we believe we will get from having it. That all boils down to happiness and contentment. And the truth is, we can have it now if we are grateful. And if you get quiet, get away from the noise of the world, and think for a moment about what you could be grateful for, I'm sure you could find plenty. Be grateful there's food on the table, air in your lungs, life in your body. Get grateful that you have opportunity to take your life to a whole nother level. To decide right now that you are going to live your dreams and never settle until you do. Get grateful for the mental strength you've been given to survive the hard times. Get grateful for your limbs if you have them. Many are not so blessed. Your eyesight if you have it. Many are not so blessed. Your hearing if you have it. Many are not so blessed. The health you do have, many are in worse positions. Get grateful for that one person that has had an impact in your life, or many people if you are so blessed. Then get grateful you can choose to be that person for someone else. That one that makes a difference in someone else's life, no matter how small. Get grateful you get to experience this magical universe. Today, look for miracles. I guarantee if you are looking, you will see them. There are unlimited things to be grateful for. Open your eyes. Unlock your amazing life. It's ready for you right now.
Thank you for this day, whatever it brings. Whether a challenge I need to grow, a lineup to teach me patience, an unexpected blessing, every moment of joy, whatever today brings, thank you. Whatever it brings, I pray I have enough presence in each moment to know that no circumstance is my life. No high or low, no event, no thing is my life. Life is energy, and I know I'm so much more than my physical body. Thank you for my ability to love, to give to others my authentic love and kindness without expecting anything in return. Thank you for my strength. Thank you for my presence. Thank you for my ability to attract only the things and people that are in harmony with what I need in my life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this day, whatever it brings.
Welcome back to A Sip of Inspiration. I'm Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, the Empowerment Doctor, and we're in the last few minutes of the show. And it's been such an exciting show for me because I believe that we create our lives and our successes based upon the quality of our social and emotional health.
Yes.
And it's something that we don't think of enough, and we don't do it enough. So I've asked Ms. Curry to share one of her successes with us.
Well, thank you. Yes, there are many that I have been a part of. So
Okay.
I'm part of a
Right.
team and work with educators to primarily to help change the trajectory for youngsters in the school setting. And there are a number of them. There's one that comes to mind of a ninth grade youngster, actually 11th grade now, but when she came to high school, she was acting out a lot. Just didn't get along with other students, didn't get along with teachers very well. Academically, she was not performing very well at all. This school happened to have a restorative justice program, restorative practices program, where it looks at disciplining children in a more kind of, I'll call it humane way, in a way that really allows them to share their voice as opposed to just punishing kids, right? And allows them to stay in the community as opposed to them being removed through suspensions, et cetera, et cetera. And this youngster had an opportunity to begin to take advantage of some of what was offered in this restorative justice program. And so she would have conflicts with the student, and then rather than be punished, she would go into a space where there was a facilitated conversation between an adult and her and the other youngster that she was having the conflict with. And this happened more than once because she's a youngster who would be in conflict a lot, right? And over time, as she was being validated and not just always being put down for being this bad kid, she was starting to be seen and heard and understood, and then was being taught how to see and understand and hear other perspectives, right? These people that she was in conflict with, these other students. Over time, she began to kind of build the skill of calming herself down and listening more effectively to other people and just being able to say, I'm upset or I'm angry, as opposed to acting those feelings out on other folks. And over the course of a couple of years, she really just changed her whole trajectory as a student around. Her grades improved. She was on the honor roll. Her behavior, not that she never, messed up, so to speak, but her behavior was so much better, and she was just well on her way, or is well on her way to graduating well and being able to take whatever next step she wants.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
And not only that, she's a role model and an example for other kids.
Absolutely.
To know that they can do it too. That's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for joining me today. We are out of time. So I tell you, this is a show we could just keep going on and on and on, because I think it is incredibly important. It is important for all of us to protect and develop social and emotional well-being.
Yes.
So for those of you listening today, I want you to be sure that you take some of these techniques and begin to use them today. Institute that bedtime with your kids. That would be a great start, where it's just you and your child, and learn to breathe more. In the meantime, I want you to do not go gently into that good night. I want you to find a heel worth taking and take it. I want you to know that you are the best thing that's ever happened. Make today so awesome that yesterday gets jealous. And above all else, do it your way. You guys have a great day. It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Okay, they're taking us out on tape.
But life's too short to drink cheap champagne, so I decided to buy me a better brand to taste with my strawberries. What